Cheers. Welcome, everyone, to a special morning edition of Responsible Tech Talks. Good morning, April.
Good morning, Jill.
It's
Once
lovely
again,
to
it's
see
great to
you.
see you. Yes.
Yes, great to see you. Great to see the internet working. For those who don't know, this is take two because my internet service provider decided to troubleshoot my modem during our last conversation. So we didn't quite get to wrap it up, and we thought that was quite a shame. So we are going to pick it up roughly where we left off. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a link in the descriptions to where you can find part one. But I think if you're just joining us now, you'll still get a lot out of this conversation. We are pivoting our talk a little bit. Previously, April and I discussed her extensive background. It's very fascinating. So if you want to learn how you go from dolphin research to product management in a large organization, please check that out. But we started to get into specifics of product management at scale and specifically with generative AI technology, what that is coming to mean for the market, for market opportunities. And now we're going to do just another click deeper into what it means to manage a product with a non-deterministic system as part of that equation. So plenty to dig into in our next about half hour or so. But let's start where we left off. So specifically, April, we ended our conversation talking about how generative AI, in contrast to machine learning systems, which we have become accustomed over time, do add, yes, some complexity, but you were suggesting that there's also a lot of opportunity to serve our customers better. They can do things that previously they were not able to do because these generative systems allow them to, wade through copious documentation very quickly, to expedite customer service in some cases, and then translating that to the business case. These are monetizable marketing or market opportunities. So ways to differentiate and carve out perhaps new niches. Me as I'm kind of the risk person, or I'm oriented toward, okay, that sounds great. And I see that opportunity. I mean, certainly we're users and to some extent enthusiasts for generative AI. However, I also know it just adds complexity because these systems are non-deterministic and we are plugging them into, in the cases that you have experience with, very products that are very well established with a large established user base and pretty high stakes. So that seems to me to be quite a shift for a product manager. But you tell me, I'm very curious to know, what is your experience leveraging the good and kind of avoiding the bad as you are, ideating and planning on how to wield this technology?
Yeah, those are really good questions. So the good, as you mentioned, is there's two, of course. There's opportunity for the business and there's opportunity for the user. So as a product manager, for me, if those are really, you build something that's useful for the customer and then the business will follow. All right. So they really thinking about how you can bring that extra value to the user. In my experience, I had in my market, my buyer was the gatekeeper. I think we talked about that last time. So we had to manage, walk a fine line between a user base who was the end user, which was not our buyer, who was very AI curious, very interested in using AI technology, and those that were buying our products who are far more cautious. And Wes actually asked, I don't know if he's on today, but Wes Royer actually asked a really great question about with regard to thinking about the guardrails and the governance and those things that then you're talking about on the security side, on the safety side. I was in the very beginning of the AI rise, and there was a lot, and there still is a lot of uncertainty in our markets, and it really depends on what role that your buyer is playing. Are they more conservative or more aggressive around use of new technology? But I think regardless, the guardrails, the responsibility is being pushed up to the vendor. So there was a lot of expectation for us as an organization or organizations, in my experience, to build trust with the buyer. So as a product person, it goes hand in hand. Your go to market really is your AI strategy, because you have to think about whether or not and how your buyer is ready, receptive, and then sort of plan your product releases, your feature releases around sort of building up to building that trust. So going full gangbusters with this really great AI tool, for example, one that may have some history or some reputation, like chatting with open chat with any records, where you can get halo effects and hallucinations and all of these risks associated with that, was something that we scheduled to release later. So we started with tools that were AI that helped the user. So help them, like you said, ingest a lot of information quickly, extract keywords, do things that help them in their process, in their workflows, but didn't seem as threatening to the buyer, who was a little more concerned and conservative. So it's really, in my experience, it's really important to know and to plan your releases, plan your go-to-market, and plan your overall AI strategy around reception of the buyer, your user, and governance in building trust.
Yeah, I really love those points about how your AI strategy is your go-to-market strategy and how it is a lever for trust building when planned properly. And I am in conversation with organizations, large organizations, looking at vendor products and bringing them into their ecosystem and having a lot of trepidation. As you talked about, the buyer side is probably what I hear more about. And I am curious how vendors are making transparent their AI strategy and what is happening under the hood, because as these systems get more and more complex, there are some vendors for whom that is a difficult task. So I am wondering, specifically about trust building, are there some tactics or documentation processes that you have found in your work or others' work to be successful in building that trust?
Absolutely. So it's really paramount, from my perspective, to have you have to be prepared ahead of time with what is your position on AI? What are the guardrails that you have in place? You have to be ready to answer those questions before you go to market. And ideally, ahead of time, you're already, as you plan your go-to-market strategy, you're already sort of dripping ID, especially at the enterprise level. There's a enterprise level position, and then each of the different divisions in a large organization may have slightly modified or their own subversions of that to align with their markets. But it's really important to have that messaging really, really clear, to be able to answer those questions and to enable your sales team. Make sure that your commercial organization is aligned on how to answer those questions, which is no small feat when you've got a globally distributed large sales force. So there's a lot of upfront work that needs to be done, because if you don't do that work, then you end up with a lot of confusion, and that generates mistrust. And then once you lose that trust, it's really hard to get it back.
Very hard.
So it's super important.
Yeah. And I think, again, the upfront work being so important. And as we talked about previously, speed also being so important. And I think we're still trying to figure out how do we do both, because our human systems just aren't, commensurately quick.
Yeah. And it really takes a strong leader to rally everyone quickly in a large organization. I mean, if you can imagine a landscape where you've got hills and valleys, and when that landscape topography is just shifting underneath you, you've got incumbent organizations that are large, that are at like the top of the hill of the current landscape, right? And all of a sudden, the landscape is shifting underneath them, and it's shifting really quickly, like really quickly. So you can imagine like the AI native companies that are exploring AI already, that don't have the burden of being a large, machine, a large enterprise organization, are quickly adapting to this landscape. They're finding this new value, this new market opportunity, and they're just rising up the hill. Then they're finding all these solopreneurs and these AI native businesses. But then you've got these large companies that are going, wow, this ground is shifting underneath our feet. And how do you go to your business leaders and say, oh, we're going to have to maybe lose revenue before we can gain revenue in order to do something new like AI? So I wanted to point that out because the speed is really important. But you've heard the phrase "turning the Titanic on a dime," right, or something like that, right? It's like, how do you enable your organization to be nimble and quick in times of really significant shift in the landscape? And it's something that's been talked about, if in business thought leadership for a really long time with innovation. I think one of the challenges today is that AI is happening so quickly that your response time, again, getting back to speed, the response time of the organization needs to be accelerated. And the challenges with that are just emerging. You hear about it a lot on different talks and in thought leadership. It's like, well, please help us understand how to make this shift quickly. So there's a lot of top-down pressure. So I think one of the other roles, just to throw this in really quickly, is the product leader, is that you are the closest to your customers. You know your market the best. You know your product better than anyone. And when you get that top-down pressure from leadership, learning how to speak a language that they understand, to say this will have a business impact if we do A instead of B, look at the risks associated with A or B, giving the executives something that they can wrap their heads around so that you can have a voice at the table to make sure that you are able to implement the guardrails and build that trust that your market needs. When at the CEO or C-suite level, they're not granularly into your particular market space. So you're right, it is a tightrope. There's a push and pull, and it can have really major impacts if you don't get it right.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you talked about the role of the product manager being this, as we typically are, the middle person between the delivery and the business side. And what you said that is sticking with me is around, we can help frame up the right conversations to be had to help mitigate those risks, because we are in a position to see them and to like crosswalk the different kind of mindsets of both of those parties, as we are accustomed to doing. But with generative AI and the speed at which it's moving, it does feel like that skill set, that role and positioning makes us more valuable in that conversation, but also like just more important for protecting against harms and maximizing the benefits of the technology.
Absolutely. And it really does take some upskilling. I mean, we weren't born native product managers unless you're just now entering into the product management, product leadership function or role. So there's a lot of shift in mindset that has to happen. And luckily for me, I'm at the beginning. I've been doing this a while and I'm quick to shift, but I know that there's a lot of churn. You can hear some anxiety in the product management role about how do we take on this sort of leadership role where we are equipped and have the skill set to push back and have our voices heard. And I think that that's really a focus where product managers should be right now, is learning how to think strategically and how to communicate with executives so that they can have those important conversations. And once you build trust with the executives, then of course it becomes easier. But just a really quick example. So we had to make a decision about speed, and how speed is really not easy. So with my portfolio, we had to make some really quick. We had to make some decisions about our policies around AI, and so I was tasked, rightfully so. It was my role to come up with a risk assessment, all of the various alternatives, like if we do nothing, if we do this, or we could do this, and then all the upsides and downsides, the risk, working with finance to kind of come up with a financial model. working with legal to really dig into, making sure we have all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted with respect to legal, which, by the way, in the AI world changes every day. So it's
Oh,
really
yeah.
quite interesting. And it took like 4 months
Hmm.
to get just this one decision made. And
Wow.
we don't have the luxury of that time is really not there. And so this was earlier. So speed
Yeah.
comes with practice, but
Oh,
it
yeah. Good point.
it just definitely can take a while to get things
Hmm.
done.
Yeah, I think we're all, yeah, like we say, figuring out, but I love the example, and the practice part is important. And I think about this a lot. So I probably index on it heavily. We talked about it in our last talk as well, is just that cross-functional kind of fluency. I just think is going
Hmm.
to be ever more important. Your example kind of
Mm.
reinforces that we need to be able to talk and work more nimbly amongst each other. April,
Mm.
I know that you were in, or I believe you were in, a leadership task force that had some accountabilities for the generative AI strategy. And I don't know what you can say about that, but that seems like that vehicle, or one of the vehicles that could be used to help increase that fluency. And I'm curious what
Mm.
that group's charge was, what your role was, and what you can say about it.
Sure, I can share a little bit. So it was a task force right in the beginning when AI was starting to really make a market, hitting the market. Um, it was a cohort of legal, customer success, content partnerships, those that deal with, contracts, product leaders, technology leaders. And we were tasked with coming up with a sort of uniform messaging and strategy for our positioning, and make recommendations. But I think the other part of it was, what do we do internally with our technology systems? How do we set ourselves up internally to be able to leverage AI to get it to our products? And so the outcome was, forming a central service of AI technology with product and design and technology and data scientists. That was then like a shared service that all the other products across, within our unit could then tap into for new feature development, assistance with planning and design, and understanding how AI can be useful in our products. I think that was a really, really smart move,
Mhm.
having that central service. And what I think really helped was bringing product people in early, so that we learned how to interface with the shared service group, so that we could come in and speak to their product people. And then we would have, proposals, we would have ideas, we'd go through the process, and then we would set up projects that they would help us with. And I think that really, once we had that established, it really helped to accelerate our time to market.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like a center of excellence model that
Exactly
you've,
like that.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, I think
yes,
that
center of
does
excellence.
sound very smart. And
Mhm,
love the idea too that you mentioned, which I didn't think about before, but there's establishing the center and being able to, for that group to be able to be effective, but also folks have to learn how to use the group too. So there is like
mhm.
education just all around in all of that, which is interesting.
And education was really, it's a good point, because this group also had weekly, or I think it was weekly, or maybe it was monthly talks about AI and how to use it,
Mm,
how to
yeah.
bring it to market, not to bring it to market, but this was from the technical side. What can we do? And they would also update us regularly on what new capabilities did they have ready to go. So for example, chatting with a document, that was a feature that could be deployed across different products, because they had built that foundation. We just had to then tap into it from our platform and then use that technology. So it was sort of like building modules of AI functionality that were then sort of usable and repurposable across the business segment. So that was really, really smart. And there were some really creative people there. So you come in and say, oh, I really want to be able to do this. They go, oh, well, guess what? So and so also wants to be able to do this in this business. We're building this. Come and join us at the table, and tell us what you're trying to do with it as well. And then it would become used in multiple ways. It was repurposed. So that was really a time saver, and it was really a smart way, I think, to get things quickly there.
Yeah.
Getting to that point was took a little bit of time, but I think it was
Sure.
worth it. It was worth the investment.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to kind of use that opportunity to jump into kind of our final topic. So anyone who is listening who would like to submit questions, please get those ready, and you can add them to the comments. But I did want to touch on just in general, your leadership experience and how important it is for you to build relationships with cross-functional team members, with colleagues. I know that you, I believe, and I want you to tell me, but you had founded an enterprise product management network. And that was just I know, such an important source of pride and professional accomplishment for you. I wonder if you can say anything about that, why you, sought that out, and why it's so important to you.
Yes, that was a little bit earlier in my beginning with ProQuest before the acquisition. It was probably one of my most favorite things. It started from just this, like a conversation. I was like, I really want to talk to more product people, and there wasn't a central way to bring us all together. But I had a few colleagues that I had met. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun just to exchange ideas and catch up? And the next thing you know, other people were asking to come. And then it grew and it grew and it grew. And then it became sort of a regular network. I had a cohort of colleagues that, was like a committee that advised on what we were going to talk about and different best practices. And we would each own a different session each month about road mapping or how to do discovery, having, win-loss interviews, things like that. And I realized how hungry other product people were for this ability to connect with each other and share best practices and learn some best practices. So it was really great. And it really highlighted for me, to your point, how important it is to have that cross-functional connection across the product organization, but not just product. Any of those that face customers, any of those that are working behind the scenes to support customers. And my leadership style as a product manager is to bring stakeholders into the conversation and keep them very well informed about what is our roadmap, what's our vision, so that every day, no matter where they are, whether they're a shared service that's across multiple teams or multiple product lines, or they're dedicated to my product line, everybody understands what my portfolio is doing and why we're doing it. Because if you have that, if you take the time, I can guarantee you that moving forward and moving is so much easier, because the people who are doing things every day, like those that are developers that are just building and building, if they understand why they're building what they're building and what impact it's going to have on the user and on the and on the business, they can make subtle decisions on their own about, this is why we're doing this. I think this is probably, how things, I don't want to say we want developers out making a bunch of decisions, but when they understand why they're doing it, then they can put their work into context. And the other thing that's super important is that once it's released, once you go to market, let's say, bring back and tell them the stories of how great their work is.
Yeah.
Tell them that it has impacted these users. Tell them that it's had a financial impact on the business. So then they can tie their day-to-day work to actually achieving a goal, and they really feel great about that. So building that buy-in, building that sense of belonging, and showing them that their work matters is something that I have found is worth gold. And it's part of what I do that I really, really enjoy.
Yeah, closing the loop. I love that. And that's so easy to forget because you ship something and you're on to the next thing. But I think that's huge. So as we're kind of winding up here, I wanted to ask if you could reflect a little bit on guidance for product managers who are sort of up and coming. You had talked about the fact that we're often not born into these roles. We come from other domains oftentimes. It's apparent that new skill sets are being demanded of us in this time of great technological change. And I'm curious what advice you would give to someone who's sort of entering the field or looking to grow into a leadership position at increasing scale and complexity. Like, what are the 1-2 things you would tell them to sort of focus on?
Well, first of all, the foundations of product management and those tenets that the old school product managers have had are still there, people. I mean, the voice of the customer, building things that bring value to customers, hearing the customer voice, all of the reasons why product management exists are still there. So those foundational principles are really still very important to get a good solid ground in. And I think where the change is the execution. Being able to execute and fulfill your role as a product leader. So a product leader, you need to be able to think strategically. You need to be able to use numbers and understand business from a business perspective. It's very important to have financial acumen. And also to learn how to work with stakeholders to move, because it's all influence without authority. You'll hear that a lot in product management circles. So I think preparing for that, get your foundation, but also immerse yourself in the cutting edge, front edge topics that are happening today. There are so many excellent resources out there for you to put your finger on the pulse of where the product management field is shifting. You have to learn to speak, AI terminology, get into products and learn how to execute and work with them, because this is really the future and it's coming really, really quickly. So yes, definitely, I don't know, upskilling, or if you're brand new and you want to move up, you've got to get that AI fluency under your belt so that you can execute using those tools to come to market, to bring stuff to market for your customers, but also to help your own product organization to be more efficient and meet where that field is moving.
Yeah, excellent. Well, April, thank you for sharing your extensive expertise. It's been a fascinating conversation, and I know that you yourself are looking for your next opportunity. So if you want to share what it is that you are looking for and how people can reach out to you, I would love to share that with the audience.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I am. I am looking for my next opportunity. I feel like this is a really exciting time. I've been waiting for AI my whole life. This is what my whole career has been moving towards. I'm very, very excited. So if you wanted to reach out to me, you have my LinkedIn profile. You can book an appointment to say hello. If you wanted to share my information with someone that I would greatly appreciate it. And thank you for asking, because it's really hard to get that visibility when you're trying to in this time. So yes, and even if you just want to reach out to me just to talk product management, you can book an appointment with me. I have like a little virtual coffee you can book free of charge. I don't charge for those, and so take advantage of that if you'd like to chat. I'm here.
Yeah, you heard it, folks. Do it. I think that you'll find
I'm
yourself
very scared
fortunate.
now.
Oh, no. See,
No,
look, we're just friends.
my calendar is going to fill up. I hope that'd be a good problem to have.
That would be a good problem. And as you say, we're fun coffee people. So I think folks should do it. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time and for this part 2. I think we learned quite a bit, and we fleshed out a lot of the considerations in the new product paradigm that we are in. So I thank you for sharing that with us. All right, folks, we're going to leave it here. Have a great Friday and weekend. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yes.
Bye-bye, Jill.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.